I never imagined a single knock could undo everything I believed about my marriage. It was close to midnight when it came, 3 hard knocks that rattled the front door and made me spill tea across the counter. Mark had said he'd be late at the office again, and I'd been waiting up, fighting the uneasy feeling that had followed me all evening. When I opened the door, a woman stood on the porch, rain dripping from her hair. Her coat clung to her frame, and she was holding her stomach as if protecting it from the storm. It took a moment before recognition struck. Lena, Mark's ex-girlfriend, the one he'd called a mistake from a lifetime ago. But Lena wasn't here for small talk. "I need to see Mark," she said, voice trembling. "Please, it's about the baby." The word baby hit like a slap. My gaze dropped to the curve under her coat, obvious now that I'd seen it. She was pregnant. I stepped back, stunned. What are you talking about?" Before she could answer, Mark appeared at the end of the hall, pale as if he'd seen a ghost. "Lena," he breathed, almost a warning. "Why are you here?" "You left me no choice," she said, rainwater tracing lines down her cheeks. "You've been avoiding me. I can't hide this anymore." I turned to Mark, heart thudding against my ribs. "You know about this?" He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Claire, I can explain." "Then explain," I snapped. "Because it looks like you've been keeping a pregnant ex a secret from your wife." Lena stepped hesitantly inside when Mark gestured for her to come out of the rain. She shook off her hood, eyes flicking between us. "I didn't want to ruin your life, Claire. I tried to stay away. But you deserve the truth." My fingers dug into the edge of the counter. "Start talking." Before she could answer, Mark appeared at the end of the hall, pale as if he'd seen a ghost. "Lena," he breathed, almost a warning. "Why are you here?" "You left me no choice," she said, rainwater tracing lines down her cheeks. "You've been avoiding me. I can't hide this anymore." I turned to Mark, heart thudding against my ribs. "You know about this?" He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Claire, I can explain." "Then explain," I snapped. "Because it looks like you've been keeping a pregnant ex a secret from your wife." Lena stepped hesitantly inside when Mark gestured for her to come out of the rain. She shook off her hood, eyes flicking between us. "I didn't want to ruin your life, Claire. I tried to stay away. But you deserve the truth." My fingers dug into the edge of the counter. "Start talking." Before she could answer, Mark appeared at the end of the hall, pale as if he'd seen a ghost. "Lena," he breathed, almost a warning. "Why are you here?" "You left me no choice," she said, rainwater tracing lines down her cheeks. "You've been avoiding me. I can't hide this anymore." I turned to Mark, heart thudding against my ribs. "You know about this?" He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Claire, I can explain." "Then explain," I snapped. "Because it looks like you've been keeping a pregnant ex a secret from your wife." Lena stepped hesitantly inside when Mark gestured for her to come out of the rain. She shook off her hood, eyes flicking between us. "I didn't want to ruin your life, Claire. I tried to stay away. But you deserve the truth." My fingers dug into the edge of the counter. "Start talking." But my patience was gone. I brushed past him and opened the door a cautious inch. The wind pushed against it, but the porch was empty, only shadows and water pooling on the steps. I shut it again, locking the bolt, feeling a little more trapped than before. When I turned, Mark and Lena were standing side by side, their faces pale and expectant. Something about the sight made my stomach lurch. "Enough," I said, voice rough. "No more half-truths. Start from the beginning." Mark ran a hand through his damp hair. "It started harmlessly. She messaged me about an old friend who'd passed away. We met for coffee, talked about memories. I should have walked away, but I didn't." Lena's fingers worried the hem of her sleeve. "We didn't plan for it to go further," she said quietly. "But we started leaning on each other. He was lonely with you working late, and I'd never really stopped missing him. I felt heat rush to my face. So I drove you together by trying to build a career? That's what you're saying?" "No," Mark said quickly. "I'm saying I made a choice, a terrible one. I let a door open that should have stayed shut." His words struck like stones. I sank onto the sofa, clutching a cushion to steady myself. "How long?" "Almost 4 months," he admitted. The room swam. 4 months of lies folded neatly into evenings I thought were ordinary. Lena's voice trembled. I didn't tell him about the pregnancy right away. I wanted to be sure, and I was terrified. When I finally did, we agreed to figure it out first, before bringing you into it. You agreed, I repeated, bitterness sharp on my tongue. While I sat here believing we were happy. Rain drummed harder, blurring the world beyond the windows. Mark lowered himself into the armchair across from me, elbows braced on his knees. I hated every second of hiding this from you, Claire. But I didn't know how to confess without destroying everything. You destroyed it the moment you chose her, I said, each word tight and shaking. Silence pressed in, heavy and close. Lena wiped at her face, then lifted her chin. Claire, I'm not here to gloat. I don't want to be the villain in your marriage. But there's a child coming, and it deserves honesty. I stared at her hand resting over the gentle rise of her belly, the quiet proof of what they'd shared. The ache in my chest deepened. Mark leaned forward, voice raw. I still love you, but I can't deny that part of me still loves her, too. I thought I could ignore it, but tonight proved I can't. I stood, pacing to keep from collapsing under the weight of their words. So what happens now? You can't stay suspended between us. He looked up, eyes shadowed with regret. I know. I need to be honest, with you, with myself, with Lena. I'll tell you everything, but I need a few hours to clear my head. No, I said, stopping in the center of the room. You don't get endless hours while I bleed here. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly, as if accepting a sentence. After sunrise, he said, voice low. I'll give you the truth you deserve. The clock ticked in the silence that followed, counting down to a dawn I already dreaded. The shadow on the landing froze me where I stood. For a heartbeat the three of us stared upward, listening. The storm hissed against the windows, and somewhere in the house a floorboard sighed. Mark grabbed a lamp from the side table. Stay here, he whispered, starting toward the stairs. Don't, I hissed back. If someone's up there, we need to call. But a voice drifted down, low and trembling. It's just me. Lena stepped slowly into view, rainwater still clinging to her hair. She looked smaller than she had at the door, almost fragile, one hand resting protectively across her stomach. I couldn't sit downstairs anymore, she said. I needed you both to listen. She descended the steps, each creak loud in the tense silence. Mark lowered the lamp but didn't take his eyes off her. Listen to what? I asked, my voice brittle. Lena's gaze flicked from Mark to me. The truth. She sank onto the bottom stair, drawing a shaky breath. I didn't come here tonight to start a fight, Claire. I came because hiding this was breaking me. I tried to stay away, but I couldn't. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm pregnant. And Mark, he might be the father. The words landed heavy, even though I'd already guessed. Hearing them aloud made the room tilt. Mark set the lamp down, his face pale. Lena. No, I snapped, stepping between them. You don't get to comfort her. You get to explain. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, searching for words. I thought it was over between us. Years ago, after we married, she moved to another city. Then last spring she came back for a conference. We met for coffee to talk through old mistakes. I felt heat rush to my cheeks. Coffee? He nodded, shame flickering in his eyes. It wasn't supposed to be more. But we kept meeting. I told myself it was harmless, that I just wanted closure. Then one night, I crossed a line. Silence stretched, filled only by the storm clawing at the windows. Lena wiped her cheeks. I didn't plan to trap him, Claire. I didn't even tell him about the baby at first. I wanted to figure out what it meant, if it meant anything at all. I pressed a hand to my forehead. My pulse thudded there, painful. So you kept this secret from me, for how long? 3 months, Mark admitted. My breath caught. 3 months? You shared dinners with me, kissed me goodnight, all while she carried your child? Mark's shoulders sagged. I was afraid of losing you. I thought if I fixed things, you'd never have to know. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You fixed things by pretending nothing happened? By letting me plan our anniversary while you held someone else's future in your hands? Neither of them spoke. The quiet was worse than shouting. Finally Lena whispered, Mark, you have to tell her everything. Mark looked stricken. Lena. She deserves the whole truth, Lena said, steadier now. Mark's eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. Claire, I need you to sit down. I stayed standing. Say it, he swallowed hard. I still love her. The room seemed to shrink, the air sucked out of it. I gripped the stair rail to stay upright. You love her, I repeated, numb. Mark took a step closer, tentative. I love you, too, but I never stopped loving Lena. I thought I could bury it, but tonight proved I can't. Lena's tears spilled again, but there was something else in her expression, hope. I felt my own tears burning, but I held them back, refusing to break in front of them. Mark reached out as if to touch my hand, then hesitated. There's more you need to know, he said quietly. Thunder rolled above us, long and low, as if the house itself braced for whatever came next. Thunder rolled so hard the glass in the windows trembled. I stayed where I was, gripping the stair rail until my fingers hurt. More? My voice cracked. What more could there possibly be, Mark? He looked at Lena, then back at me, his jaw tight. I didn't want to hurt you, Claire. That was never my goal, but I kept seeing her because I couldn't figure out what I wanted. Part of me was clinging to the life we built, and part of me couldn't let go of what we had before. You had years to figure it out, I said, anger slipping through the numbness. Instead you let me believe everything was fine. Lena shifted on the step, smoothing her damp hair away from her face. I tried to stay away after I found out I was pregnant. I thought if I disappeared, you two could stay happy. But Mark kept reaching out. He wanted to know about the baby. Mark's head dropped. I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. I needed to make sure she was safe. Safe? I laughed, bitter and sharp. From what, morning sickness? That's not fair, Lena said quietly. He was scared, and so was I. I turned on her. Scared of what, Lena? Scared that I might finally see what was going on? Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 accusations. Mark rubbed his temples, voice low. I should have told you everything the moment she came back. I didn't because I kept hoping I could keep both worlds intact, my marriage, and the piece of me that remembered her. You don't get to have both, I said. You made vows. He lifted his eyes then, raw and pleading. I know. And I broke them. The confession hung in the air, heavy as the storm. For a long moment none of us spoke. Then Lena reached inside her coat and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, softened from being handled too often. I wrote this months ago, she said, holding it out to me. It was everything I wanted to say, an apology, an explanation. I almost sent it, but I couldn't decide if opening that wound was kinder or crueler. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it, her handwriting curved across the page, lines filled with regret, longing, and a quiet hope that one day Mark might forgive her for leaving, that one day they might find a way back. Every sentence was a needle, stitching together the history I'd never been allowed to see. By the time I reached the end, my throat burned. You loved him all along. Lena didn't deny it. I never stopped. Mark closed his eyes, the muscles in his jaw flexing. I tried to be the husband you deserved, Claire. I did love you. But I kept a door open in my heart, and when she walked through it again, I didn't shut it. A tremor rippled through me, half fury, half grief. So where does that leave me? Am I just collateral damage in your great love story? No, he said, stepping closer, rainwater still glistening in his hair. It leaves us standing in a storm, and I have to choose a direction. The air felt thin, like I couldn't breathe enough of it. Then choose, I whispered. Mark looked at Lena, at the gentle curve of her belly, then back at me. Pain flickered in his eyes, but something else too, resolve. I can't answer tonight, he said hoarsely. Not when everything's spinning. I need until morning. Morning? My voice rose. You think I'll sleep while you decide whether to stay with your wife or walk away? I don't expect you to sleep, he said softly. But I won't lie, I have to face what I feel. Tomorrow, you'll have my answer. He turned toward the hallway, shoulders heavy, leaving me staring at the two of them, the man I married, and the woman carrying his child, as lightning split the sky outside. Morning crept in behind the storm, a pale light sliding through the blinds. I hadn't slept. I'd sat in the living room all night, staring at the envelope of photographs, trying to feel something other than the dull throb in my chest. Mark came down the stairs just after sunrise. His shirt was wrinkled, his face drawn, as though the night had aged him years. Lena followed a step behind, her hands folded across her stomach. They'd been upstairs together. That small fact was another shard lodged in my heart. He stopped at the edge of the room. "Claire," he said quietly. I didn't answer. My throat was too tight. "I thought about what I said," he continued. "About choosing. I kept replaying everything, how we met, how we built this house, how we promised to grow old together. And then, how it felt when she walked back into my life." Lena lowered her gaze, but she didn't move away from him. Mark rubbed his palms together, searching for words. "You've given me loyalty, patience, a home. I should have protected that." But when Lena came back, something woke up in me I didn't expect. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was alive. I swallowed hard, the sound loud in the quiet. "So this is about what makes you feel alive?" He flinched but didn't deny it. "I know how cruel that sounds. I hate myself for putting you here. But the truth is, part of me still belongs to her. And the baby only makes the pull stronger." Lena looked at me then, her eyes wet but steady. "I never wanted to destroy what you had," she said. "I begged Mark not to tell you until he was sure. I thought maybe he'd stay with you and I'd raise the child alone. But we kept finding excuses to see each other, and She stopped, pressing her lips together. "You loved every second," I said, voice trembling. She nodded slowly. "I did. And I hated myself for it." Mark stepped closer, cautious. "Claire, I need you to know this isn't about you not being enough. It's about me not being honest about who I am." A bitter laugh escaped me. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No," he admitted. "But you deserve the truth." For a moment the three of us stood in a triangle of silence, the storm finally quiet outside but a worse storm spinning between us. I looked at him, really looked. The man who held me when my mother died, who painted the nursery even though we never filled it, who could make me laugh when I wanted to cry. And the same man who'd met a past love behind my back and let her carry his future. "I don't know how to stay married to someone who's already somewhere else," I whispered. Mark's eyes glistened. "I don't want to hurt you anymore, but I can't promise I won't keep hurting you if I stay." The clock on the mantel ticked, loud as a heartbeat. He took Lena's hand, only for a second, then let it fall. "I need to clear my head," he said. "I'll walk by the lake, think. By tonight I'll know." I wanted to tell him not to go, to demand he choose me here and now, but the words stuck behind my teeth. My knees felt hollow. Without waiting for an answer, Mark opened the door. Cool air rushed in, smelling of wet earth and endings. He stepped outside, pausing just long enough to glance back at us, one look, unreadable, before disappearing into the pale morning. I stood frozen, the echo of the door closing settling over me like a final sentence. The house felt hollow after Mark left, every clock tick a reminder that time was moving while I stayed frozen. Lena stood near the window, her hand still resting over the swell of her belly. Sunlight caught in her hair, turning the strands to gold, but her face was as pale as mine. "He'll come back," she murmured, though it sounded like a plea rather than certainty. I couldn't answer. I wandered into the kitchen, needing the clatter of mugs, anything to drown out the quiet. I filled the kettle, poured water, then realized I hadn't switched it on. My hands were trembling too hard. Lena followed slowly. "Claire," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I need you to know that I didn't plan this. I didn't come back hoping to steal him. Yet here you are," I said, staring at the unboiled kettle. "Standing in the ruins of my marriage." She swallowed and leaned against the counter. "When I learned about the baby, I told myself to leave town, to disappear so you'd never have to know. But Mark, he begged me to stay. He wanted to be part of it. I didn't have the strength to shut him out." The words pierced but didn't surprise me. "You wanted him, too." "Yes," she whispered. I finally turned to her. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I held them back. "You have something I never gave him, a chance to start over. Maybe that's what he wants." Lena's eyes shone with tears. "If he chooses me, Claire, I'll never stop feeling guilty about you. I wish we could undo this." "There's no undoing," I said quietly. "Only choices." A sound outside made us both flinch. Footsteps on the path. I hurried to the living room just as the front door opened. Mark stepped inside, damp from the mist rising off the lake. He looked exhausted, but certain in a way he hadn't before. He stood just inside, gaze traveling between us. For a heartbeat I thought I saw regret, but it was layered with something steadier, resolve. I walked the whole shoreline, he said, voice hoarse. I thought about the vows we made, about the years behind us, and about the child coming into the world. My pulse thudded. And? He set his hands on the back of a chair, gripping it until his knuckles whitened. I can't split myself anymore. I've been living in two stories, and both of you deserve more than half of me. I wanted him to look at me, to say my name, to tell me I was still home. Instead, his eyes drifted toward Lena. A tremor ran through me. Say it, I whispered. Say what you've decided. He hesitated, then shook his head slowly. Not yet. I owe you both a conversation first, tonight, after dinner. I want to speak when I'm calm. The room swayed. Dinner? After everything, he still needed hours? Mark, I said, my voice sharper than I intended, don't stretch this any longer. Every minute is another crack I can feel inside me. He stepped closer, the distance between us charged with words unsaid. I know, he said quietly. But I need to make sure I don't run from the truth this time. I'll give you my answer tonight. He looked at Lena, then at me, his expression unreadable. Then he walked past us into the hallway, heading upstairs, leaving a trail of wet footprints on the hardwood. I stood rooted, the faint creak of his steps above mixing with the ache in my chest. Lena sat heavily on the sofa, wrapping her arms around herself as if bracing for impact. Upstairs, a door clicked shut. And I realized the next time it opened, the life I knew might be gone. Evening settled over the house like a held breath. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the darkened window, waiting for footsteps on the stairs. My tea had gone cold hours ago, but I didn't dare move. Every creak in the walls felt like the moment before a verdict. At last, Mark appeared at the threshold. His face was drawn, his hair still damp from a shower. Behind him, Lena lingered near the hallway, arms wrapped protectively around her stomach. He cleared his throat. I've made my decision. My fingers tightened around the mug. Then say it. He looked at me first, eyes full of a sorrow so deep it nearly undid me. Claire, you've been my anchor through everything. You gave me loyalty, a home, laughter when I didn't deserve it. Part of me will always love you for that. The words cut and comforted in the same breath. But, he went on, voice rough, when Lena came back, I realized feelings I thought were gone hadn't disappeared at all. And with the baby, it isn't only about the past anymore. It's a life that needs someone who's all in. A silence opened between us, heavy as stone. So you're leaving, I said quietly. His jaw clenched. Yes. I'm going to build a life with Lena and the baby. I can't keep you tied to a man who isn't fully here. For a moment I couldn't speak. My chest felt cracked wide, air scraping against the edges. I thought I'd prepared for this, but the pain was raw, blinding. Lena stepped forward, tears glistening. Claire, I never wanted to hurt you like this. I wish I could fix it. I shook my head, unable to look at her. Just, take care of him, and of that child. Mark reached toward me, then stopped short, as if realizing the touch would break something we couldn't repair. I'm sorry, he whispered. The apology splintered what was left of my composure. Tears slipped hot down my cheeks. I pressed a hand to my mouth to stifle the sob threatening to tear free. I don't want you to watch me fall apart, I managed. Go. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. He and Lena gathered their coats in silence, the only sound the faint rustle of fabric. When they reached the door, Mark looked back one last time. Whatever he saw in my face made him flinch, but he didn't turn around. The door closed with a soft click that echoed louder than any slam. I stayed standing until my legs gave way, lowering myself to the floor. For a long time I just sat there, letting the tears come, letting the hollow space around me settle. The house felt unbearably still, yet beneath the grief, something faint stirred, not hope, not yet, but a thin line of determination. I was still here. My life wasn't over because someone else chose a different path. When the room finally blurred back into focus, I rose slowly, wiping my face. I walked to the window and watched their car disappear down the quiet street, taillights fading into dusk. I knew the nights ahead would be heavy with echoes, the laughter we'd shared, the promises we'd made, the way his eyes once lit up just for me. But I also knew I would survive them. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, I would rebuild from the pieces they left behind. I turned from the window and faced the empty house, breathing deep, steadying myself against the silence. Whatever waited on the other side of this heartbreak would be mine alone to claim.